Okay, so let's get started. We're going to go ahead and create our bootleg design in Affinity. I'm going to create a new document. It's going to be 14 inches by 16 inches at 300 dpi, which is your standard DPI for any sort of high resolution artwork. That just basically means we're packing in 300 pixels per inch versus the internet, which is 72. I'm going to create a new fill layer. I'm going to change the name to shirt color so I know what it is, and then I'm going to select the shirt color, which will be black. A lot of your vintage classic designs are on black backgrounds. And then I'm going to lock that layer. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start placing the images I want to use. So I'm going to show you, this is an old vintage bootleg t-shirt, and you can see the colors are a little odd, and that's because of the printing process, which we'll dive into a little bit. But I'll go into further in other videos. But here I'm going to be using some stuff I found on the internet. These are other photographers' work. This is not something I'm selling. I'm just doing it for educational purposes, so please try to use your own stuff. But, a lot of the bootleg guys, they were doing small print runs, and they could kind of get away with it, so that's basically what they did. So I'm going to start with this one here, and what we're going to do is we're going to kind of make some initial tweaks. So I'm going to kind of make the blacks of the image where I want them, and that kind of helps essentially erase some of the background. Technically it's still there because that's part of the image, so we'll have to go in with some masking to erase, but I'm going to go ahead and tweak the blacks till I like them. I'm using levels to do that. You can see that you can kind of get into the other channels too and kind of pull away some colors, like I'm doing here with the red. I'm using the black slider to kind of tweak. I just felt like the reds were just too saturated, so I pulled them away and kind of cooled things off a little bit. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to rasterize, which I just completed, and what that does is it destructively applies, meaning it just merges down layers, the levels onto that layer. Now I'm going to apply a mask, and we're going to just kind of brush away the edges, because I want to kind of put some stuff around them or behind them, and I need to kind of delete the image to be able to do that. So I'm actually using my mouse. I do have a Wacom tablet, so if you've got it, use it. I just felt like for this one, I'm going to use the mouse. I do have a Wacom. You've seen me use it in other videos, but I figured, this is just a way to kind of show that anybody can really do this. So what I'm using is I've got a custom set of brushes I've made over the years. I might make available at some point. This is just a soft round, nothing special, and I've just turned the flow down pretty low, and I'm using black to paint into the mask layer, which erases from the image. So now you can see, I've left some of that background there, which is fine. I kind of want to indicate some of it. And now that it's trimmed, I'm going to go ahead and drop in the next image. So I was thinking on this one, I wanted to have it kind of a two-parter in the background. I wanted a close-up of Tyson's face. I thought this one was kind of cool, looking kind of mean. And I figured I'd drop this over his right shoulder in the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm just kind of scale it, kind of get it in position, and then I'm going to run through the same scenario. I'm going to kind of get in there with levels, make some tweaks. I'm going to use a mask to kind of erase some of it. And then what I'll do is apply, a gradient map to kind of help push the colors in the direction I want, using the gradient map itself and maybe even switching some of the layer modes. So that's basically what I'm doing here, just kind of getting in position. And when I like it, I'm going to do a rasterize and trim. And what that does, it rasterizes the image, but anything that goes outside the bounds of the working area or the artboard or canvas, it's going to trim it. So that takes care of some of the work. I wasn't really concerned about, keeping his arm in and stuff. I really just want, just the portrait of him. It's going to kind of be a neck up, maybe shoulders up kind of part of the image. So now here I'm going to lose a lot of the image because it's just a background piece, and the main focal point for me is him rocking the belts and the gloves. So that's definitely going to be the focal point of the composition. So I don't want all of the images kind of competing with each other. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of fading them out a little bit, and here's where I'm diving into the gradient map. So it's a pretty straightforward process with gradient maps. You're basically adding tones and colors to an image. And I'm going for like a, sort of cyan blue. I mean, just essentially blue. But I'm working shadows, midtones, and highlights for that same uh, hue. Now that I have it, I can kind of play around with it. And I'm going to, and at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that gradient live. I'm not going to rasterize anything to apply all those effects to that image. But I am going to reorder them because I want to make sure that when I'm tweaking levels, it's not going to play with the gradient map too much. So those things are going to stay in place. So now I'm just kind of going in with the levels and tweaking to my liking. So I'm going to boost a little bit of the highlights, maybe pull away some of the shadows. I don't, I want to, I want the image to be there. I don't want it so dark you can't see him or it looks like he's standing in the dark. But that's what I do with the levels, and then I make sure the mask is stacked below all of those things, so that when I do the masking and start erasing things, I don't get a weird like fuzzy edge. If you experiment with it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But I'm making sure that the mask is at the bottom of the stacking order. And the way we clip things in Affinity is by dragging the layer on top of the layer that we want it to clip to, on top of its thumbnail. So the image with Mike's face, if I did levels, I'd pull the levels in as a layer and drag it on top of the thumbnail for his face. And it will then indent the way you see it in the layers panel over there. And that means that it's clipped to just that layer. It will not affect anything else if it's clipped in that way. So you can clip multiple layers, like levels and curves and different effects, or even layers themselves, and paint into them. You just have to make sure you get the right stacking order. So now I'm popping in my third image and going through the same process. So sometimes I get a little ahead of myself. Maybe I apply the levels first and then the gradient map, or vice versa. But it's fine. As long as you keep it editable, you can go back in, change the order yourself. So right here, I'm just basically duplicating the gradient map, and you'll watch me drag and pull it right on top of the thumbnail, and you'll see that it clips to that, just that layer. And yeah, it's pretty simple. And that's stuff you can find, pretty much everywhere if you're looking at how to work within Affinity suite of packages, image stuff, things, whatever you call them. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and scale it up. And this time, I'm going to use the gradient map. I kind of want to keep the boxing gloves red tones, but I don't want them so saturated that they're pulling away from the focal point. Because remember, that focal point is the magic for the image. We want our main focus there. We want the background elements. We don't want them stealing the show. So I'm using the blue gradient map, and I'm going to use a different layer mode for the gradient map, which will cause the colors to kind of play with the underlying image's colors. And I like that there. And I think that was an overlay setting, if I remember correctly. And that's basically it from the effects point. So now it's just taking care of the mask portion. So you can see that my mask is selected in the layers panel, and I'm painting away with black. If you don't understand masks, let me know in the comments section. I've got a few tutorials, I believe, that are Illustrator related that go over masks. They're pretty easy. You just, the best analogy for masks is, just the way the real world works. We need light to see things. So if we were in a void with no lights, everything would be pitch black. And that's how mask works. You can't see anything if it's black. So if you paint in with white, or just use white in a mask, it's like light. Light appears and you're able to see things. So painting with white in a mask allows you to see things. Painting with black allows you to not see them or erase them. So at this point, I've erased away enough, and I'm going to revisit them. There's a few spots that I had forgotten in the first background image, so I'm just going in there and fixing that little mistake I had left. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to group those two background images together, and then I'm going to apply effect to them to really kind of harmonize the colors. So I was going to drop in the gradient map. I realized, you know what? I'm going to keep with the theme. I'm just going to go back in, duplicate that gradient map, drag it onto the thumbnail of the group, and now it applies to both of them. You see, I've lost some of it, so I'm just going to go through, and I don't know if I sit with lighter color. I think I might change it. So I went to color, and you can see now with color, basically it just applies the color of the gradient map. So I got it to about 14%. I like that. Seemed like I got them kind of close enough. And now I'm just doing a little more repositioning. And I might erase away some of the main image here. I felt like the black shadows along the main image's face were just a little too dark. So that's kind of what I'm going in there, erasing that. So we're getting close to done as far as the photo work. Then we're going to be approaching text, and with the text I have some presets that I use. Kind of move through pretty quick. This isn't so much a text tutorial, but at some point I'll dive in a little further. But this is just really getting in there, touching up the main images themselves, and then adding text. And now I'm hopping into the text. So with the text tool, I'll get in there. I'm going to do a vertical Tyson. And sitting here recording, I don't remember. I think it's like Adelon is the typeface that I use. So you see I'm stacking here. And yeah, so it's Adelon, and it's the heavy version of that typeface. So I'm going to go ahead and center the text, size it, and just kind of get it in place. Compositions can be difficult things. They can also be pretty easy. So here I wanted like the T to frame that background image that has Tyson kind of fighting. I can't remember if it was Holyfield that he was fighting, but anyways, the T's kind of framing that head. So we're using little happy accidents like that to kind of frame certain sections. But I definitely, so the Tyson idea, I was thinking, it's Iron Mike Tyson, so let's go ahead and make this text look like it's, in the middle of being forged in a blacksmith shop or something like that. So I used a preset, and it's got 3 levels. So what I did is I just took the text, duplicated the text layer 3 times, and applied the presets to each one of those. I will have that up for free, and look for the link in the description box, and you guys can snag those presets for Affinity. Then at this point I was like, you know what, let's just reinforce that idea. So I got a blacksmith shop, middle of forging something with metal. I don't know what it was, but I really liked the picture. I thought, I could kind of slap this in somewhere. So what I'm doing now, I'm just kind of playing with the layer modes. And I decided difference was kind of cool because it kept the energy and vibrance of just that really hot metal look. And then, it's going to kind of basically go through the same process. I like difference. I don't think I tweaked anything as far as levels or anything. So it's just masking. We got to trim off the extra of the image and then get it into position and make sure that while it's in there, I don't want it to cause any weird, tangencies or just anything strange where it's overlapping, parts of the image weird. So, at this point, just grab your brush, something soft, make sure the opacity or flow is low, get in there and just start brushing away the edges. And, after that point where I soften things up enough, I'll probably do a rasterize and trim just to cut off that excess that's hanging off the artboard. I know I do a little scaling here just to kind of get it in there. Might not be the most successful idea, but it's kind of a little Easter egg thing. If you follow Tyson and know the nickname, then you'll pick up on it. So now here it's just getting in, making sure I've trimmed off all the stuff that I need to. And I know I'm going to zoom in, and on Tyson's left shoulder for the main image, I'm going to get in there and kind of make sure that's hidden nice and behind him. Almost looks like a drop shadow that I'm doing. So, but yeah, like I said, just get in there, nice soft round brush, get your opacity straight, and you can do it with a mouse. So, and it just kind of fills in some empty space there, erased from the image above it with Tyson boxing. Yeah, so once this is completed, we're going to be basically diving into what is the meat and potatoes for the look of a bootleg t-shirt, which is the process that screen printers use, which is a four-color process, or process printing, they'll call it. And that is the same thing as your inkjet printer at home. It prints with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And I've created some actions inside Affinity that automate that process for you. It'll take care of the cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and underbase, which is the white. If you're printing on a black shirt, you need to have a white below. So what I'm doing here now is basically I've taken the design and grouped it, and then I've duplicated that group, and I'm going to basically rasterize that layer. I'm going to take all the work, the text, all those images, and rasterize them into one flat image. And now you can see, when I turn off the shirt color, you can see that everything's merged together. It's got the blacks in the image, and I want to get rid of that stuff. I actually don't want black. If we're printing on a black shirt, we don't really need black. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to go ahead and I think I was looking for layer adjustments. It's not like Photoshop. You're not going to find invert there, but it's down in the layers panel right here, and you're going to go ahead and click invert, which I then rasterize. And then once it's rasterized, I'm going to go up here and click the filter that's under colors, erase white paper. So it's just deleted the white, and then all I have to do is come back and re-invert the image. Because basically what I've done is all the black gets inverted into white, and then I use the erase white function to delete the white, which is essentially the black, and then I just invert back. So that might be over your head. If you run into some trouble there, toss it in the comments, let me know, and I'll describe that in another video. So at this point, now that the black has been erased, I'm using my library actions called Bootleg, and I'm pulling those plates that I told you about. I think I started with the black plate. Now I'm clicking the button, it's running through some actions, it's pulling the cyan plate. So there's some workarounds. It's not perfect like Photoshop's version. So there's some steps you kind of have to go through. Like I have to turn this layer back on, click it, then hit whichever one I want to use, which in this case is magenta there. And then the last one is the underbase, which is going to be the white on the bottom of the image. So now that that's done, you can see, and I'm showing you, all those plates are pulled, and the image is close to the final image. There's going to be color shifting because we're limiting ourselves to those 4 plates, and depending on the stacking order, it can change the way the image looks. Like right now, magenta is below yellow, and I will be tweaking stuff. So I'm going to play around with the order until I get something I like, and I know I threw the magenta on top. So now you can see that magenta's on top of the yellow, but it's pretty intense, so I want to change how intense. So I'm going to drag right here, which is the levels I create in the action, and I'm going to drag it and clip it on top of the mask. And now to tweak this, we need to go into levels, change the setting to alpha, and alpha deals with masking. That's where you would change a mask's level settings. And then here, I'm going to kind of play around with my sliders. Black is going to erase more of the image, where white is going to introduce more of the ink, in this case, the magenta, into the image. So you can play with the gamma, and I basically want to play around with it until I get to this point where it looks, in all honesty, kind of goofy. You definitely want to do a photo recreation, but a lot of the classic bootlegs kind of have a weird orangey, yellowy look to them. The colors are off because a lot of the times it was just somebody's coming in, and screen printers didn't really want to print unlicensed gear. So sometimes it was guys in their garage printing this stuff, and they weren't the greatest screen printers. So there's a lot of color shifting. So that's kind of what I'm introducing here. So right now I'm in the cyan. I've done the same process where I've dragged the levels layer on top of the masked layer inside the group for that color, and then I just go into levels and play with the alpha setting for the level. So there you go. See me, I'm switching it again to alpha, and then playing with the sliders, and I can push and pull those colors kind of where I want them. So I'm kind of liking that there. It's kind of giving everything that goofy, not a really great screen printer kind of look, which is, I guess, the endearing quality to, bootleg shirts. And the other great thing is, with those actions, you're pretty much ready for the screen printer. You could pop those plates out if you know how to do them properly, uh, and send them over to your screen printer, and they should be able to take care of the rest. I mean, you could rip these, which is the process of half toning all your plates. These are all things that I can show in later videos, but let me know in the comments section. I was thinking about putting together a course on how to design some of this stuff, how to pull the separations and get everything ready for a screen printer, and that will eventually save you money. If that's something you're interested in doing a workshop, let me know in the comments below. If I see enough kind of support for it, um, I'll probably end up putting it together. So at this point, I've taken all those plates, I've tweaked the levels enough, and here I'm just kind of showing you, turning them off and on, and I've grouped them all together into one layer called seps. And I mean, that's it for the most part. At this point, I'm going to basically tweak the colors. So with the final, you have to be careful. You're tweaking the colors, then you're going to have to run the plates again, especially if you're handing separations to somebody off to your screen printer. But I'm going to tweak colors, and I'm actually going to apply some distressed effects because I want to have that vintage look like it's been worn. So I have brushes available for Affinity if you guys are interested. That'll be in the description box below as well. If you guys are interested, it's going to be a set of brushes and some seamless patterns that'll give that kind of nice vintage look. So what I'm doing here in Affinity is I've created a vector square layer the size of the canvas, and I've applied that bitmap seamless pattern texture to it, and I've set that layer to erase. And then once I throw it in the group, you'll see that it essentially, the pixels from that layer erase the layers below it, which is a really great feature. You don't have to set up a mask or anything in Affinity. You just swap the layer mode to eraser and you're good to go. So I'm going to do, I think I did 2 of those. Or no, I might have done 2 where I picked 2 different bitmaps with, a little variation in the distress. Or maybe I didn't. And at this point, I'm going to the main design. I've applied a mask to that. And now I'm actually using the brush set that has some different, fabric textures and different type of grunge. And, when you're looking at distress stuff, it's always the edges that break out first. Anything in the center tends to take a little more time than edges. So I'm kind of focusing on edges. I'm going to be careful. I don't want to hit faces too much because those are focal points. So what I will do is I'm going to go ahead and rasterize my effect layer. I don't want it to be a vector situation anymore, so I'm going to rasterize it, then apply a mask, because if you apply a mask to a vector, it just kind of tweaks it. It just does something funny. It's kind of a bug, but now I'm going into that major distress pattern that covers everything, and going into the focal points, which are faces basically, and erasing some of the distress from it. So some I guess the bigger points to get across here are: learn masking well, understand the printing process, because it's just going to make your designs that more authentic. And you can be pretty lethal with some of the stuff you're doing. So this brush here, I love it. It's got like a kind of a fabric texture to it. Just over the years, the fabric tends to kind of distress in a way that the threads of the material kind of fold and increase and what have you. So that basically covers it. Now that you've thrown all your distress, you're pretty much ready to go. But if you needed to hand this off to a printer, you might want to run the plates again if you do what I'm about to do here, and apply a hue and saturation just to kind of get into some of those color channels, like the yellow one. And I'm playing with the yellow. I'm kind of shifting the saturation and moving it around. So I felt like his skin tone was a little too green. I want it kind of a little weird looking, because that just, like I said, gives it more of the authentic vintage look. So I head into cyan, tweak that a little bit. I was a little undecided, but that basically covers it. And if you guys are interested in my Plastisol Distress brushes, there will be a purchase link in the description box below. If you guys are also interested in that workshop idea, let me know in the comments section below. I definitely think it's something we can dive pretty deep into, teach you guys separations, understand the process of screen printing and the different ways you can do that. And that'll eventually save you some money or maybe even inspire you to do some screen printing yourself. But I hope you guys took something away from this today. If you've got any questions, any feedback, or just want to troll me, hit me in the comment box below. See you guys in the next video. Thanks.